All right, hello everyone. I see we have some people from all over the world here today. This is another Articulate Storyline workshop, so we will be diving into storyline basics and I'm sure some advanced features as well. If you have any general storyline questions, please use the Ask a Question tab and we'll try to get to them at the end. And it looks like an avatar selector is actually the winner for today. So that is what we will be building. Go ahead and open up Articulate Storyline if you want to follow along, but this recording will be available at the same link as soon as the session is complete. So feel free to just observe if you'd like. And for all of the storyline experts who are in the chat, feel free to help answer questions, or if you know a better way to do something, feel free to add that to the chat. That's provided a lot of value during the previous sessions. So let's build this avatar selector thing. I built something like this for a client once where the user could choose like their mentor, and then that mentor is the one who presented the content throughout the session. So it's just a fun little interaction, give the user some choice and maybe gain their attention at the beginning of the module. So yeah, and I think we'll learn a lot about variables, positioning, and just basic storyline interactivity along the way. So let's dive into this. Okay, so I have Articulate Storyline open here, and we could do this the easy way, or we can do this a more advanced way. And I think we should go with the more advanced option. Let me know if you think otherwise in the chat, but I think we'll learn more trying the slightly more difficult version of this avatar selector. All right, so here we are in Storyline. The first thing I want to do is change this aspect ratio. I want it to be widescreen. I think we did this in our last session as well. So I'm going to change it from this 4:3 more desktop aspect ratio and change it to 16:9 aspect ratio, which is more widescreen. It's the same aspect ratio that videos are in. So let's go ahead and do that by going to the Design tab and then going to this Story Size option right here. Once we are there, we will change the story size to 720 by 405, which is this 16:9 aspect ratio. And if you have any questions about what we're doing technically in Storyline, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'll try to catch those as they come. All right, so 16:9 aspect ratio. Once you've changed it to that, you can just press OK. And now we want to start getting some stuff on the slide here. So I'm going to insert a text box. We can either do that by going to the Insert tab, selecting text box, and then pressing on the screen, or you can just hover your mouse wherever you want the text box to start and press Control-T, or I'm imagining Command-T if you're on a Mac. So I'm just going to type in choose your mentor. And then we will style this a little bit with going back to the Home tab. I'll make it bold. What font do we want? I mean, mine Proxima Nova. I'm not sure if everyone will have that. So Lato is a good one that everyone likely has. And then let's make this like size 36. That looks fine. And I know I've really hammered home on these alignment options, and you notice I just used one, but just for anyone who is new, I do want to quickly address that. Whenever you're selecting an object, like how we're selecting this text box, you can go to the Format tab at the top, and then you'll see these Arrange and Align options to align this object to the slide in different ways. So I'm just using this Align Center option to center my text on the slide, and I'm going to move it towards the top so we have room to actually put the avatars on the screen. So now let's choose some avatars here. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and just to keep it simple, we'll use the characters in the Articulate 360 content library. So we'll go to the Insert tab, and then we will select Characters. Everyone doing okay? It looks like it. All right, so let's go with some illustrated modern characters. I think that will go well with this. And I'll just go with these first three options right here. So once the Lily right here is selected, I will press Insert. I'm going to zoom in a little bit by holding down the Control key on my keyboard and then using the mouse wheel. This might be a little bit different if you're on a laptop without a mouse, but that's what I'm doing. And now I will resize Lily a little bit so she fits better on the screen here. And again, you see we have these arrange and align options so we can center Lily on the screen. All right, and again, if anyone needs me to slow down or anything, just let me know in the chat. All we did so far was add a text box to the slide, and then we added this storyline character to the slide. So what I want to do, I want there to be this kind of like wheel effect where the character you're like currently about to select is right here front and center, and then you might have the other avatars like smaller out here on the sides, and when you press a button, like it will be like maybe it's just a little triangle. Let me show you. And then maybe there will be like a triangle so that you can cycle through the different characters to like bring this next one front and center. So that is what we're trying to build here. So we have this first character. Let's go ahead and add our second character. So I'm going to go back to the Insert tab and select Characters. And now we will add Andrew to the scene. Okay, so we want them, we're eventually going to want them, let me think here. So the way that I'm going to make this work whenever we press this button is with layers. Okay, so I want to be able to show and hide different layers based off of which character will be front and center for us to select. And because of that, and maybe some other people have found this as well, this first option, I want it to be on a layer of its own. I don't want it to be on the base layer. Okay, choose your mentor can stay on the base layer. That's fine because that's going to be on every single slide. But this character isn't going to be front and center on every slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this new layer icon right here in the bottom to create a new layer. And I will call this one Select Lily. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to bring Lily onto that slide or onto that layer. So on the base layer, I'm going to select Lily. I'm going to press Control X on my keyboard to cut Lily from this slide or from this base layer. I'm going to select the layer we want Lily on, and then I will press Control V to paste her right back in that same position. Okay. So I will do the same thing with Andrew here and with this. Well, I'll just delete this arrow for now. We don't need to worry about that. The important thing to know is all we have on the base layer is this choose your mentor text. And now on this select Lily layer, we have Lily, and we'll paste Andrew back in here and resize him a little bit to make it clear, like, you know, if you press the right arrow, he'll come up next. But for now, he's like not the main focus of the slide. So let's, I'm going to align Andrew to Lily right now. So if you have them both selected, you can go to this Format tab and press Align Middle, and it will align Andrew to the center of Lily, just because, you know, he's below the highest point of Lily and above the lowest point of Lily. So I'm looking at these, you know, these points right here. As long as these top points are below Lily's top points, and the bottom points are below Lily's bottom points, when you use that command, he will get aligned to the center. So let me show you what I mean. I'll bring him down even a little bit more. And then when we do align middle, he'll get brought up perfectly middle aligned with the Lily character. Okay. So this is looking good. Let's see with spacing. I think this is looking about right. And now we want to do the same thing with another character. So we'll go back to this Insert tab. We will go to Characters, and we will select Shannon. Whoops. And I'll just press this Insert option so that they're all in the same pose. Another thing you can do to make sure that Shannon is the same height as Andrew is we can select Andrew here. And in this Design tab under Character Tools, we can see Andrew's width and height. So his width is 55 pixels and his height is 162 pixels. So let's go ahead and try to set that for Shannon. So the width was what, 55, right? Yep. So it seems like this pose might be a little taller. You notice they both have the same width, but Shannon is a little bit taller. So I think we'll want the height to be the same. So I'm going to change Shannon's height to 162 and see how that looks. Okay, and then when we drag them over, we can see they're, basically the perfect size. The next thing we want to do is make sure that the spacing between the front and center characters and these other characters are the same, because you notice now this doesn't look right. Shannon is too close. So what I like to do, just to make this super simple, is I'll drag this shape out from the middle point of Shannon to the middle point of this other character, and then I will, so now I know this is the distance apart they are, and then I'll drag this across to the other side just so I know where to bring Shannon, just to keep it like mathematical, if that makes sense. So if I get rid of this now, I think it's looking better. It might look a little skewed because of the pose, so we can even change this pose. So if you select one of the characters, we can go to pose, and maybe we just have hands. We want like a nice neutral pose. Let's see. Maybe, arms down at sides. Let's try that. I'm gonna change that for each of them. Just put their arms down at their sides. And there we go. Everyone is standing very neutral. I mean, hopefully it doesn't look like they're taking a mugshot. They don't. Maybe we'll give them some smiles. So we can select them. The pose or the expression can be happy. So we'll do that from each of them, just so they look a little bit happier to be here. And notice I'm doing this with the Character Tools Design tab with these 4 options right here. This is very basic for some of those. You could distribute horizontal. Yeah, so here's another way we could have, Julie, that is a good point. We could have distributed horizontally, and then we would have just grouped them and centered them to make sure they were centered on the slide. So I can demo that really quickly. Say we had one out here. Maybe she's still in the middle, and this one's over here. So what we could do is we could select all of them, and I'm doing this by holding down the Shift key and then selecting the ones I want to add to the selection. We can go to that Format tab, and we can use this Distribute Horizontally option, and it will make sure that there's even space between them automatically. Then what we can do is press Control-G to group them. We'll go back to this Format tab, and we will center align the entire group. So grouping is really effective for alignment, as you just saw. And then I'll just press Control-Shift-G to ungroup them so that they're these individual entities again. Okay? So this layer is looking good. What we'll want now is maybe to add a button beneath the character so that you can actually select that character. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to add a shape. We'll just add a rectangle, and we'll draw this somewhat wide rectangle at the bottom. It's a little cramped, so I think I'll move this up a little bit, and I'll make this text a little smaller, I think. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, so for grouping, it's Control-G. I'm guessing on a Mac it would be Command-G, and then to ungroup, Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G. And if that's not the command for Mac, I'm very sorry. I noticed this button doesn't look exactly centered with this. Wait a minute. So we centered this group, but it seems like this character is not center aligned. So I think the first option I had was maybe a little better. I don't know why I acted up like this. It's just not as precise, I guess, when you're doing it as an entire group. I think I need to change this. So let me just center align the character, and now I'm going to move Shannon here over a little bit. I'm just going to do my little trick really fast just to make sure that the distance is the same. Okay, it seemed like it was fine. I think this is okay enough. I mean, you get the idea. Okay, so now with this button, let's say select Lily. Okay, we'll maybe change this to Leto, which is the font we're using. We'll make it bold. Let's change the fill to a different color. maybe we take the color from Lily just to make it match her better. You probably wouldn't do this if you're trying to go with like a brand guide or something, but notice I'm going to the Format tab under Drawing Tools. I'm selecting this little drop-down arrow next to Shape Fill, and then I'm going to select the eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to pick a color from Lily's shirt here. Okay. You can tell actually there's a stroke around this, which is default when you add one of these shapes. So we're going to get rid of this outline by selecting the drop down next to Shape Outline and then pressing No Outline. All right. And finally, I think it would be nice if we had this have a nice animation in. So we'll go to the Animation tab, we'll do Float In, and we'll change it to maybe 0.4 seconds. Okay. The right guy is wider. Yeah, there was something going on with how these people were shaped that it didn't wind up exactly in this she didn't wind up exactly in the center, but it was close enough. I want to show you something else too with this button. So what I like to do just to get more control over how these buttons look, and maybe it's not needed here, but you can right click the outline of the button and go to Format Shape. And if you go to text box at the bottom, you'll notice you have some more control over the margins of this button. So you see left, right, top, and bottom. I think these are fine, but maybe we just put top and bottom margins to 10 each. I don't know if that changed anything because of how this is shaped, but I just wanted to give it a little bit more breathing room. Maybe I think this looks fine. You get the idea. So what we'll do now before we go ahead and duplicate this for the other characters is we want to create a variable so that we can track which mentor the user chooses so that we know who to actually display on the next pages, right? So we will go to this Manage Project Variables icon over here on the right, and we'll press this plus icon to create a new variable. So maybe we'll just call this variable mentor selection. And a text variable is fine. We'll just set that variable equal to whatever the character's name is whenever it's clicked. So I changed it to mentor selection. It's a text variable, and we're not going to have any default value. Okay. So we will press OK. And now what we want to happen is when the user clicks this button, we wanted to set that variable to Lily. So I'm going to select the button, and then I'm going to press this create a new trigger icon over here on the right panel to add that interactivity to the button. So the action will be to adjust a variable. You can notice down here under this more subheading, or you can just type in adjust, and you'll see that adjust variable option. Since we only have this one variable in our course so far, it defaults to that. Set mentor selection to value, not blank, but we want to set it to Lily. So we'll just set that value equal to Lily, and the action, the when is by default when the user clicks rectangle 1, and that's because we selected that rectangle before creating the trigger. So this looks good to me. Let's press OK. And then let's go ahead and create one more trigger, because first we wanted to set that variable, and then we wanted to jump to the next slide so we can actually move forward in the project. So the next action will be jump to slide next slide when the user clicks rectangle 1. And it's very important that that mentor selection variable is set first. And by that, I mean above the jump to next slide trigger, because if it's the other way around like this, that variable will never get set. It's only going to jump to the next slide, and that mentor selection variable will be blank. So the order of this trigger execution is very important in Storyline. All right, I also want to go ahead and just save this project so that if something happens, I don't want to lose my work. Maybe if you've been at it for a while, I'm sure something has happened before and you've lost some work in the program. So let's go to Save As. I will save it to my desktop, and I will name this Avatar Selector. All right, there we go. Project is saved. So this slide this layer is just about ready for us to duplicate. And notice I'm doing all of this programming and adding all of these pieces before duplicating this layer 2 more times for select Shannon and select Andrew, because you want to do that work before duplicating it, so you don't have to add these triggers all over again. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add those buttons. So we will add a shape. It's just going to be a simple triangle to cycle through the next avatar. We won't make it too big. I am going to go to the Format tab and align it to the middle of the slide. I'm going to get rid of this shape outline just like we did for the button by pressing that little drop down and doing no outline. And maybe we'll just make these arrows black, because it might be a little bit confusing if they're changing like every time you press it for a different color. So let's just make these black by default. And these aren't going to animate in, these are going to stay here. So I have one. I'm going to start dragging it. I'm going to hold down the shift key. I guess it's not so important here. I'm going to hold down the control key as well, though, so that when I let go of my mouse, it's going to make a copy of that triangle. So when I let go, notice this one is still over here. I just need to turn this one around using that little that rotate handle, and then I need to align it better so that there's about the same amount of spacing between the edge. Akanksha, I hope I pronounced that right. This is being recorded, and you can view it as soon as the session is complete. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do my test. I like the spacing to be exact, so I'm going to insert another shape. I'm going to drag it from the edge of the screen to this. And there's another way to do this as well. It looks like playing it by eye wound up being pretty precise. But again, we can select both of these. We can do Control G to group them, and then we can use this Align Center option to align this to the center. And notice it adjusted by a couple of pixels. And then I will ungroup this. So that pattern or workflow that you just saw me do, I do that all the time. Grouping, aligning, and ungrouping. It definitely helps with keeping things like precise on the slide. Use shift while rotating the shapes makes it easier. Yes, good point. I think I was doing that. Okay, it looks like it's kind of the same for me for this one when I'm holding down shift or not, but I know what you mean. Sometimes it will just go in like 45-degree chunks when you hold down shift. Not sure why it wasn't doing that for me right here. Oh, it's doing it in 15-degree chunks. Okay. So yeah, when I hold down shift, it's doing it by 15 degrees. And when I let go of shift, it's just doing it by 1 degree. So it's harder to get it precise. So yeah, holding down shift makes it really easier to hit that exact rotation. All right, so we can't add programming to these yet because we don't have the new layers created, but that's what they will be doing. When the user selects this one, for example, we'll be showing that select Andrew layer. And when they select this one, we'll be showing that select Shannon layer. Let's just see how this looks if we use this same fill color. What do you guys think? I mean, not super important what color we go with here, but the black was looking kind of boring. Well, we'll keep it with black just because the title is black, I guess. So let's do that. All right, so now we want to go ahead and duplicate this layer. I think we have all of the programming we will need except for these arrows, but we need to create the layers before we can actually create those triggers. So let's go ahead and right-click the Select Lily slide, or the Select Lily layer, I'm sorry. Oh, and one more thing. I want to draw attention to this. Let's select this little edit properties for a selected layer cogwheel in the bottom right before duplicating this layer. And if you're new to Storyline, you need to know that this is here because this is going to have a very big impact on how your slide functions. So look at these visibility options. If this is checked, it will hide the other slide layers whenever you're on this layer. That's good. We want that because we don't want, it's going to get really confusing if you can see all the other characters like on top of the other one. So we want this checked. We do not want to hide the objects on the base layer because that's where we have our selector mentor text. So we can leave that unchecked. And we don't want to hide the slide layer when the timeline finishes. So that's fine. Allow seeking. That's not important here. That just means, do you want the, if you have the seek bar turned on, it will move forward with as the timeline moves forward. And if you don't have this set to yes, or to automatically decide, like if you have this set to no, the timeline won't show up for this layer. It will just be based off of the base layer. So again, not important here. We don't need to get too far into that. prevent the user from clicking on the base layer. That is a very important setting for some interactions, not so important here. And pause the timeline of the base layer. It's just good to know this stuff is here. When revisiting, we do want to reset to initial state because we have this button animating in. So we don't want Storyline to decide, oh yeah, we'll just keep the button already animated in. And it may do that if you have it on automatically decide. So we want to make sure it's resetting to that initial state so that every time you go to a new avatar, their button just fades in right beneath them. Alrighty, so, and that's what, yeah, okay, good. So we'll close this now. Make sure revisiting is set to reset to initial state. And now we will right click on this layer and select duplicate. So now it will be titled Select Lily Copy. I'll just click into this title again or double click it, and I'll change this to Select Andrew. All right, so we're doing good so far, it sounds like. So think about how this is going to work. When you're on the Select Lily slide, so we can actually set this, we can set this trigger on the Select Lily slide right now, on the Select Lily layer right now. So go back to the Select Lily layer, let's create a new trigger, and we'll show the layer Select Andrew when the user clicks triangle 1. Okay? So now whenever the person is looking at the slide and they click this, it will bring them to this Select Andrew layer. There's one more thing I want to do, just so that we don't forget. How did you animate the button? So you, I'm on the Select Lily slide right now. You select the button, you go to animations, and then you can just you can set an entrance animation right here. I just did a float in animation with a 0.4 second duration. It's the animations tab. But I want to go back to this base layer, and we need to add a trigger right here. So I'm going to create a new trigger to show the layer Select Lily whenever the timeline starts on this slide. Because if we don't have this trigger, someone will get to this slide and all they'll see is that blank slide that says choose your mentor at the top. If we don't actually show that Select Lily layer, then they're never going to see it. So again, this trigger is show the layer Select Lily when the timeline starts on this base layer of the slide. So I'll press OK here, and now we're ready to keep going. We wanted to make sure we had our bases checked so we don't forget that. So we're back up to the Select Andrew slide. This is where we're going to start moving around the characters and playing with the positioning, okay? So when the user presses this button, we need to think about how this wheel will function. So Andrew will get brought to the middle, right? Lily will get brought over here to the left, and Shannon will now be over here on the right, okay? So what I'm going to do, instead of just moving this person and resizing him and trying to play it by eye, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to drag a copy of him and hold down Control to make a copy, okay? And I think you'll see why I'm doing this is just to make sure that it's positioned exactly right so that when you press the next button, people aren't jumping up a few pixels and jumping down. We don't want to play this by eye. We want this to be very precise. And I think a good place to start is just by looking at this height number. So Lily is 242 pixels tall. Let's set this new Andrew to 242 pixels tall. And now what we'll do, I'll drag him down. I will select both of them. And since Andrew is beneath Lily, if I do this align top option, Andrew will get brought right in line with the top of Lily. And I could align him to the left of her as well, but I think he's a bit wider than her. So actually what I'll do is I'll just select only Andrew and I'll select this align center option. Okay. So there we are. I'm going to actually move him over. I'm going to want to use Lily for, Lily needs to be positioned over here. So I'm just going to drag her over. And now we're going to center Andrew on the slide. Okay. We don't want to forget changing the button text. So I'll change that now to select Andrew. Notice the button actually wasn't wide enough to include all of that. So I'm going to drag this handle out to the right. And by holding down the Control key, it will make it so that it also drags out the same distance on the left. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you at once. Again, this recording will be available if some of this stuff is new to you. But yeah, if you hold down Control when you're dragging one of these handles, you can be sure that it will be the same distance on the left and the right, and that stops you from having to center align the button all over again. So of course, since we made this button wider, I think for consistency purposes, we should make the Select Lily button the same width. So you notice here, size and position in this Format tab, this button is 136 pixels wide. So we want to go to the Select Lily button on that Select Lily layer and change the width to 136 as well. And then we will just center that button to bring it back to the center. So notice that I'm always using these, I'm always looking at these numbers up here to make sure that things are consistent. So if you are conscientious of these, and you can do the same thing for positioning. So when you need to make sure that things are consistent across different layers or different slides, these options right here are very important. All right, and then we want to color this Select Andrew button. So once again, I'll go to the Format tab after selecting that button. I'll select this little drop down next to Shape Fill, and I will select the Eyedropper tab. We don't really have any eye-catching colors on Andrew, so I think we'll just go with this dark brown in his pants maybe. All right, glad to hear it, Matt. Matt likes how we go into details for each step. I do hope that's appreciated and not boring. So I'm sure it's helping some people who don't already know this. So thank you for that. All right, so Andrew's looking good. What we need to do now is we need to size Lily down so that she matches the same size as Shannon is right now. So Shannon is 162 pixels tall. We will do the same thing for Lily. We'll make her 162 pixels tall. And it's nice because the width, the aspect ratio is automatically constrained so that it will automatically change the width for you. So that's nice. Good, I'm glad to hear that that's helpful. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. I will just align Lily to the top of Shannon. And it's important that you bring Lily beneath Shannon before doing that, because if I press this align top option right now, Shannon will get brought to the top of Lily, you see? And we don't want that. So we need to bring Lily down, and now we can select them both and align to the top. And once again, we will align left. This looks like a perfect match. Now we're in this situation where Shannon's on top, actually. That's what we wanted. Okay, so Lily's in position. Now we just need Shannon right over here. That's perfect. It's perfectly centered. You notice that's why I left this character here, because now I can see where he was and I can just get that perfect centered alignment. So all I need to do is select this Andrew on the timeline. You notice it's going to be very hard to select him right here. There's a few ways I can do this. If I didn't want to dig around on the timeline, I could right-click Shannon and do send to back. And now Andrew will be in front, and I can just click him and press delete to delete him. Okay. Notice one more thing here. We need to change this variable. Okay, we don't want to set mentor selection to Lily. We want to set mentor selection to Andrew. So make sure you change that value that we're setting over here. And since we know if we press this left-facing triangle, we're going to get back to Lily front and center. Let's go ahead and add a trigger for that to show the layer select Lily when the user selects, when the user clicks triangle 2. So this is how you're going to go get back and forth between the characters, right? So on triangle 2, we're going to show layer select Lily when the user clicks it. So once that looks the same as this, I'm going to press OK. And now I want to demo this and see if what we've done so far is looking good and working. Before I do that, I do want to change the player. Let me show you really quick. If we preview this, we're going to have all of this extra screen real estate. There's all, we don't need all of this extra stuff just for this demo. So I'm going to go to the Home tab in Storyline, and then I'm going to select this player option. Okay. So once we are there, we can turn off the menu, we can turn off resources, turn off title, volume, captions, uncheck everything you saw here, and then go to colors and effects. Oh wait, sorry, you see menus and controls, turn that off, then go to, change this to light. Colors and effects, we want to change to light. So once that's good, we'll press OK. Veronique asks, what is the purpose of the variable? We need a variable that holds what the user selected, so that when we're on the next slide and we want to actually show that mentor presenting some specific information, we need to use that we're going to have to use a condition to, for example, show Andrew if mentor selection is equal to Andrew, or show Shannon if mentor selection is equal to Shannon. So that's how you use the variables and conditions. And if you don't, we'll get there. Don't worry, we'll get there. As soon as we get this slide working, we'll do that next slide, just so you can see how we're using the variable with a condition to conditionally display the variable that the user selected. Okay, so we turned off all of those controls. Let's go ahead and preview this now and see if this is working like we want it to. All right, choose your mentor. This is a clickable button, but let's say we want to go with our guy Andrew here. I'll press this button, and then Andrew gets brought front and center. So I notice this, and then same thing if we go back, we can go right back. I notice this button seems to be jumping in here very quickly. So let's add a little bit of a delay here just to make this a bit less jarring. Okay, so I'm going to go to this select Lily layer first. I'm looking at the timeline now. I'm going to drag the beginning of this select Lily button out to this 1 second mark. And then I'm going to change this animation duration back to the default 0.75. So now 1 second after 1 second passes on this layer, then the select Lily button will animate in more slowly. So I want to see how that looks. I'll do the same thing with select Andrew. We'll drag it out to 1 second, and we'll change it to 0.75 duration. Jessica says variables have been her nemesis. Hopefully sessions like this, and again, for the next storyline workshop, I'll think of an option. I know we vote on the options. I'll think of one that is much more variable heavy, just to really drive home variables and conditions, because getting a good handle on those will definitely up your storyline development game. But let's see how this new slower animation looks. Okay, I mean, it's fine. It gives you a little bit more time to digest who this mentor is. This is fine. So let's just do this last slide really quickly. I do want to cover a few more things. So let's go ahead and duplicate this select Andrew layer because it is looking good. We're going to name this new layer select Shannon. And now we need to do the same exact thing we did on the last one. I'm going to drag Shannon over while holding down Control. I'm going to set her height to 242 pixels so that it's the same as Andrew's. I'm going to select them both, and then I'm going to do this align top option. I'm going to select only Shannon. Well, first let's move Andrew out of the way a little bit, and then we'll select Shannon and center align her to the slide. I'm going to select Andrew. I need to set his height down to 162 pixels. I'm sorry I'm moving through this quickly. I think we went through it a bit slowly on the last layer. I'm just trying to make this swift progress here. I will align I'll align Andrew to the top of Lily. And now I will just center align him right here so it's perfectly aligned. Notice we have the same thing where we need to access Lily now, but Andrew is above her. So we'll send Andrew to the back. And now we will select Lily and drag her over here around where she's going to need to go. We'll actually just put her right over Shannon so that that's perfectly aligned. We'll send Lily to the back, and then we will delete the smaller Shannon avatar. We'll change select Andrew to select Shannon. And finally, we will change this shape fill. We'll use the eyedropper option, and we'll select this navy blue in Shannon's clothing. Joe, we could get fancier with the animations. I don't think we're going to have time to do that here, but I do want to show you something cool that we can do just to make this slide a bit more engaging. Let's finish up the programming first. So on this select Shannon layer, when we select the left arrow, we want to show the layer select Andrew because he's to the left. And when we go select the right triangle, we want to show the layer select Lily when the user clicks it. Okay, and then same thing, let's look on the select Andrew layer. When we go left, we want to select Lily, that's perfect. And when we go right, we want to show select Shannon. And finally, let's just do this on the select Lily slide. When we select this left triangle, it show the layer select Shannon. And I did forget to change this variable. Notice we're setting on the select Shannon layer. We need to make sure that we are setting the mentor selection variable to Shannon instead of Andrew. All right. I'm gonna show you a quick like troubleshooting technique, and you might have seen me do this in previous sessions, but I'm just going to go on the base layer. I'm gonna go down here in the bottom right and press Control T to create a new text box. I'm going to add a percentage sign, and I'm going to type in mentor selection, and then press the percentage sign again. What this is a variable reference, so it will display what this variable is equal to at any given time. Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that actually, because whenever we select this button, it jumps to the next slide. So we don't need to do that. It's simple enough. We can see right here that these variables are all being set to the right things. So let's delete this. There were two more things I wanted to do. I think we have time, okay? So let me show you this. So I thought it might be cool if when we're on this select Lily slide, when we hover over the select Lily button, it might be cool if Lily like changes her pose or like reacts to you being about to select Lily. So let me just show you how you can add these little micro animations to maybe just add that extra like oomph of production value. So I'm going to select Lily, and we're going to use states now. I don't know if we've covered very much of this in the other storyline workshops. So we'll go to this states panel next to timeline and then select edit states. Okay, you'll see this option to add a new state. So we'll do that now, and we will name this select me. So notice we have this same Lily character, but what we can do is we can change the pose or the expression. So let's see if there's a better pose to use when you're about to select Lily. So maybe arms in the air, like, you know, she's excited, you're about to select her. Okay? So notice all we did, we just added this new state called select me. We can press done editing states. And now we can add this trigger to our button. So watch what I'm going to do here. Create a new trigger with the button selected. We're not going to show a layer. We're going to change the state of character 1 to select me whenever the user hovers over the button. Okay? So now whenever you hover over that select Lily button, she'll like put her arms up like she's excited she's about to be selected. And then since we have this option right here selected, restore previous state when the user hovers out, when you hover away from that button, Lily will change back to the same pose she's in right now. So I'm going to preview this and show you how this looks really quickly. So here we are, the button's going to animate in. And now when we hover over this, you notice her pose changes. And you can do the same thing with her expression. We already made them happy by default, so maybe there's nothing to change. But I've used this approach in similar types of interactions, and it usually just adds like another layer of, you know, it's just kind of cool. So I think I'll quickly duplicate that with these other characters. So we will add the same state select me for Andrew. Maybe we'll change a couple of things. We'll change his pose to maybe he has his hands out, he's welcoming, he's like, yeah, pick me, like we're gonna go on this journey together. And we'll change his expression to surprised. Maybe he's surprised, like, you're really going to pick me? I feel so honored. You get the idea. I'm going to again add that trigger to the button so that we change the state of character 4 in this case to select me when the user hovers over rectangle 1 and we want to restore it. Okay, so we'll do the same thing with Shannon very quickly. I hope this isn't too repetitive. We'll add this new state called select me. We will change the pose to maybe Shannon's just like a lecturer. She's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to teach you something. You're gonna learn if I'm your mentor. And then the expression will make We'll make thinking. Maybe she's like, are you sure you want to do this? You get the idea. So same thing. I saw someone talking in the chat about copying and pasting a trigger, and let's do that. So we can go back to the select Andrew layer and copy this, and we can go back to the select Shannon layer and paste it. So we'll change state of, we have to set a few more things. We'll change state of rectangle 1 to select Shannon. We want to change the state of the character, sorry. So character 5 to select me when the user hovers over rectangle 1. Peter, yes, you can apply the same trigger to the character, and you can do the same thing where, like, if you're on this screen, you click on this character, you can also make it go to the select Shannon layer. So we can duplicate that pretty easily. Like, we can just do that right here. I'm going to copy this show layer, select Lily from the triangle, and I'm going to paste it on Lily. I'll do the same thing on this triangle on the left, and I'll paste it on Andrew here. And I can quickly do the same thing on the other slides, just so you can see how fast this is when you're copying and pasting triggers. So it just makes it nice and easy. Now, in case someone thought it would be more intuitive to select the character, we're going to make that possible now. And you can do the same thing with the selections. You can make it so that when they pick the person in the center, it selects them. I'm not going to do that though, because I want to make sure we get to the condition point. So let's check this and see if it works as we plan for it to work. Select Lily. All right, Lily is excited. Notice I just clicked the character that time and it went to the layer. He's excited, or surprised, I mean. And then we can go to Shannon, and you see it's just like a nice little animation. So it looks good. Everything looks aligned. Nothing's like jumping out of place. And there we go. Cool. So let's add this next slide now. So I'm going to name this first slide, choose your mentor. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to hover over new slide. I'm going to hover over basic layouts, and I'm going to select blank. Okay. There's a relevant question from Wes. Wes is saying, what's the best way to change future slides to the appropriate character and expression type? I'm imagining having a character with several states and just change the states based on the variables. Is there a better way? The better way is to just copy the character and then just change their expression based off of what you want it to be on that slide. You don't need to use states and variables. You only need to do that if it is changing with based off of a variable. So we're doing this now because it's based off of a hover state or some kind of interaction. If you're on like a feedback slide where the user answered the question correctly, you just need to change this character's pose to unhappy or something. And it's a lot easier. You just click on the character, you go to design, and you can change their pose. So you don't need to have it in all these different states. That seems more confusing versus just having them on there and changing the pose. So we're using the states because we want to change them based off of some kind of user input. All right, so let's get to this slide. So let's name this slide introduction, and we want to insert Lily here. I'm just going to go back to the insert tab, select characters, and select Lily. We'll insert her here. Let's make this like a nice, close, and personal type of slide. So we'll make Lily bigger so that she fills up more of the screen. We want to add a text bubble so that maybe they're welcoming you or something. Let's do a shape, and let's do this first rectangular call out option. And then I'll just drag that out to expand it a little bit. If you use this yellow handle, you can change where this handle is coming from. I don't love how these look, but they get the job done. Let's make this maybe we make this have an outline, or actually let's go ahead and take this a step further. So I'll make this the same color as her, shape fill, eyedropper. We'll make this the same color as her blouse, just for consistency. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on this slide. And we can add a text box now, or we'll just add the text right in here in the speech bubble. Hi, my name is, and we could just put, hi, my name is Lily. But if you've been following along, we already have their name being held in that variable reference. So let's go, instead of saying my name is Lily, let's say, hi, my name is Mentor Selection. Okay. And again, that's, you just type the variable name exactly like it's spelled in your variable manager, and you add percentage signs around it so that it actually displays the value of that variable. So I'm going to press Control A now to select all of this text. I'm going to press Control B to make it bold, and maybe I'll make the font size a little bit bigger, like font size 14. Okay. Lily's not looking too happy right now. Let's change her expression to make her happy. This pose is fine. Okay. So we have a basic layout for this. We're ready. You know, the person might not always select a Lily. So let's go to states. Let's edit the state, and let's add a new state called Shannon. Okay. So this time we need to change the actual character. So while I have Lily selected on this Shannon state, I'm going to select character, and I'm going to find Shannon. Here Shannon is in this illustrated modern tab. We'll double click Shannon, and I'll just press insert. Okay, so notice now we have Shannon right here in this Shannon state, and we'll add one more state, and we will name it Andrew. And once again, we will change the character. We'll go to this illustrated modern tab, and we will select Andrew, and we'll select insert. Julie, you called that out right. If you're going to give them this variable selection option, you need to have these 3 different options on each slide. So it obviously is higher production value. It's going to take more time, and you do need to make sure that these triggers are here. And I'm going to show you that next. So right now, it's just going to show you Lily if you get to this slide. So we need to add a new trigger to change the state of character 1 to Andrew when the timeline starts on this slide, only if mentor selection is equal to Andrew. Okay, so notice this is where we use that condition. Eric, you could use a layer instead of a state, but that's going to get tricky. Like if we wanted to have layers on top of this, you're going to have to really worry about, like, do you have show other slide layers turned on? Is that going to interfere with your programming? By keeping it constrained nice and like this to one shape, basically, because Storyline is treating this as one object, there's a lot less chances for it to interfere with the rest of your programming. So that's why we're using states in this case. So notice that we've changed the character 1 to Andrew when the timeline starts. If mentor selection is equal to Andrew, I'm going to now copy that trigger and paste that trigger. And we're going to change the state to Shannon if mentor selection is equal to value Shannon. Okay. We might want to do the same thing for this text box. We could do the same thing for this text box, but we'll keep it a bit more simple. Let's just make the shape fill black. We'll get that nice contrast. It's consistent with the black we were using on these slides. So we could add another layer to change the state of character 1 to normal if mentor selection is equal to Lily, but we don't need to do that because it's Lily by default. And you notice here, if you go to the states panel, it will show you that initial state, and you are able to change it if you wanted to. So who's ready to see if we did this correctly and wants to see if it works? Can you copy and paste that trigger? Yeah, you can just copy and paste this. I think a better way to do it, yeah, notice here when the timeline starts on character 1, the first time I did this trigger, I did it when the timeline starts on this slide. Let's change this to character 1. And now these triggers are tied to this object. So if we copy this object and if we paste it, let me just create a new slide really fast just to show you. If we copy that object here, it's going to bring those triggers with it because we have it set to when the timeline starts on that character. So it's kind of like set it and forget it. If you want to change the pose, you'll have to do it for each of the 3 options, but you don't need to do those triggers every time, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to delete this now. Let's test this and see if we got this thing working. So we're previewing it. All right, so let's select Andrew and see if this works. There we go. Hi, my name is Andrew. Let's replay the project. Let's select Lily. Hi, my name is Lily. And we'll replay the project. We'll go to Shannon. Select Shannon, and here we are. So there we have it. I hope this gave you just a quick example of how you can use variables and conditions. Again, the more situations like this where you see, oh, here's how I could use a condition, I think the easier it will be for it to click on future projects. I actually have a really good idea of what I'll put on the list for next time. I won't waste time talking about it now, but there will be an option that's really that will rely very heavily on variables and conditions in the next storyline workshop. I think I'll stop sharing my screen now. We see that this thing works. I'll go ahead and save it. All right, so how do we feel about that? I probably went too fast for everyone to follow along, but I wanted to cover all of that ground. I'm gonna look at the chat really quick and see if I missed any comments. Janine asks, can you copy states with the paint formatter? Yeah, I believe you can copy states over. I don't use that tool very much. I have used it in the past somewhat successfully, but I usually just try to design one thing exactly how I want it, and then I just copy and paste it and modify it slightly. But I think that formatter can be very useful if you know how to use it. For me in the past, it's been hit or miss. Like I thought it should work for something and it wouldn't. So I don't use that tool to its full advantage. Tom, is there a way to save buttons and objects that you create so you can use them again in future slides? Yes, and it's called copying and pasting. So they basically are like saved on that earlier slide. So whenever I want to reuse something, I'm not going to build it from scratch. I'm just going to go back to that slide, copy and paste it, and then maybe change the animation if that's what needs to be changed, and so on and so forth. All right. Oh, Jessica got something online. Let's see here. Okay. Jessica, this doesn't seem like the most functional interaction, but I do appreciate that effort. Thank you for sharing that. Good stuff. Cool. Oh yeah, and Nicole is saying that you can save templates in Storyline. That's not something that I've had a ton of experience doing, so I don't think I'm the best person to speak on saving it as a template. Good call out though. It does sound like it could be useful. It's okay, Jessica. I think you can get it working with just use this recording if you need to and spend a little bit more time with it, and just message me in the Slack if you need some extra help with that. But good stuff. I do want to announce that next week at this same time slot, we're doing a question and answer session with Kathy Moore. If you're not familiar with Kathy Moore and action mapping, this is a very good session to come to because like her book, Map It, and action mapping in general, like probably had the biggest influence on my instructional design practice. So check out that session next week if you're interested. Thank you everyone for coming. The recording will be available at the same link, and 2 weeks from now, I'll put it up on YouTube. So yeah, I had fun with this one. Thank you, everyone. Reach out to me if you need me. I'll be around. Bye-bye.